Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, the show where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, business, relationships, and the art of living a balanced life. I'm Jami.
And I'm Greg, and we're here to give you the benefit of our experiences in the fitness and bodybuilding industry, the corporate world, running a business, personal development, and building healthy relationships.
Whether you're sweating it out in the gym, hustling in your business, or seeking balance in your everyday life, you're in the right place.
So lace up those sneakers, grab that water bottle, and let's get ready to transform our minds, our bodies, and our lives. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of FitBody Lifestyle. And today we're going to talk about cultivating your friendship garden. And so we talked about a little bit about friendship and that your inner circle, and that making sure that you treat that as something that's precious to you, something that you're tending to. It's not just fertilizing your garden, because just fertilizing means that you're just putting stuff on it to make things grow. But part of cultivating it means that you're going to trim leaves, you're going to pull plants that maybe don't belong in there. You might pull some weeds out that don't belong in your friendship garden. But I think today, I think we really want to get into that aspect and some of the characteristics you should look for in that inner circle.
And one of the cool things about going through this is all these characteristics can be turned the other way as well. So these characteristics that we're going to talk about that you may want to look for in those people that you're surrounding yourself in, you can also work on cultivating them within yourself.
Right. So the first thing that we think is important is finding somebody who's interested in you. And maybe as we talk about how do I know if somebody's interested in me? Well, look for some of the signs. Do they always talk about themselves, or do they ask you questions about yourself? And you know, again, as we talk about this, and a little bit of a push-pull mindset is that it's not just what you're getting, it's what you're giving. And those aspects should be somewhat equal with the people that you surround yourself with. So is this person really interested in me? And
right. We've all been on that date.
Yeah, we have.
We've all been on that date where, you know, that first date where somebody talked about themselves the entire time and didn't ask one question. I think sometimes people are nervous. And at the same time, it is nice to, like you say, have that reciprocal sort of relationship where there's a good flow back and forth.
And you know the story that I always tell about this is we were at dinner with another couple, and it was a business meeting, and there was discussion about business, and one of the other couple asked me, "So Greg, what do you do?" And at that point, I administered the test. And the test was, I gave a kind of a flippant answer. I said, well, according to Jami, I moved papers from one side of my desk to the other. And there was which is true. and there was laughter, and then that was it. And then we moved on to a different topic. And what that told me was that this person was really not interested in me. They were interested in perhaps what I could do for them, or they were more interested in Jami, which I don't blame them. I'm more interested in Jami too. But they were not really interested in me, because had they been interested in me, they would have said, no, really, what do you do? There would have been a follow-up question, and there wasn't. And I'll be very clear, I'm not advocating giving the test to everybody, but I do think it's interesting that, you know, there are people that you have in your life that are going to dig, and they're going to want to know. If you have a friend, and this is one of the things that I do, if I have a friend and I say, how you doing? They said, fine. Well, okay. Well, what does fine really mean? What does good really mean? Tell me a little bit more. And so those three
Greg's
words.
That friend that'll never let you get away with that. I guarantee it.
That is true. That is true. And that's why my favorite three words are tell me more. Tell me more, because there's something else going on, and I'd love to just open my ears and listen to you. But and if you're not ready to talk about it, that's fine. But the point is that are you surrounding yourself with people who are genuinely interested in you?
Yeah. And I feel like that's so important, and it makes you feel good about yourself, the relationship. And these could even be business relationships, like the example you gave. I didn't know where you were going with that. And then about halfway into the story, I knew exactly what you're talking about. And, you know, almost especially in a business relationships, right. You know, like we want to have an actual relationship, you know, with the people that we're doing business with, because we want to be invested in each other. So, you know, the way that they show that, or the way we show that interest is by asking questions and getting to know them a bit better.
Well, and going back to corporate life and corporate world, private sector work, we used to give employee surveys all the time. And one of the questions that would always appear on a survey relative to managers and leaders was, my manager genuinely cares about me. And it was amazing how, and listen, that wasn't just for my company. There's data out there and studies out there that talk about the importance of a manager or a leader or a coach in our world who genuinely cares about you. So as you talk about your inner circle, both does my inner circle, the people in my inner circle, do they genuinely care about me? And as you pointed out, Jami, and I think that's right, is do you also then care about them? Are you reciprocating that action? Are you reciprocating that genuine concern? Are you the kind of friend not only that you want, but that you want to be?
Which brings us perfectly to our number 2 is, are they dependable? And, when somebody tells you they're going to do something, do they follow through on it? Are they mindful of your time? I do feel like, I know some people are more punctual than others. We won't say who's more punctual than who out of this couple.
Stop. We will just talk. And I on our very first date, I had a big fail because I wanted to impress her.
And he'll never live it down.
And I'll never live it down. So this is now 17 years later. I'm still explaining.
Actually, it's like 19 years later.
19 years later. Well, 17 years of marriage, 19 years of knowing each other. Fair. I'm glad
first
you correct
date.
me. Our first date, what did I do?
So on our first date, I'm all excited. I had gotten all ready and I'm waiting and the clock is ticking and time is going by. And where is he? He's not there. And 15 minutes goes by and I'm worried. And then 15 more minutes goes by and I'm starting to get pissed. And then, by 45 minutes, he shows up with the most beautiful roses I've ever seen in my life. They were massive. And he had driven all the way across town to get them, but he was late.
Yep. I did not, those of you who listen to other episode, I did not follow the 7 Ps. I did not prior plan to prevent my piss poor performance. So I was not dependable on that date. I got over it, right? So, I'm still here.
You're still here.
I'm still here. I get fired from time to time, but I'm still here.
But that's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Like, it really is, because it just, for me, it shows me that people are valuing my time and that they care about me. If and things happen. I do believe in giving grace, and there are some things that happen. It's just, if it's consistently happening all the time where people are canceling or not showing up, it just shows me that maybe they don't really care or value me or my time as much as I do theirs.
And you delivered to me, and as we talk about, maybe that gets into the next point here of the third thing that we will talk about, which is holding me accountable, which you did. And the difference, I think there's a lot. Accountability is something that's out there in the world. There's a lot of discussion about it. It was, part of corporate culture as well, and I think a lot of people. Well, let me not talk about a lot of people. Let me talk about myself. When I hear the word accountable, there is a part of me, and maybe this is my Catholic school background, that thinks, okay, accountability equals punishment. Accountability is something bad. Well, I don't want to be held accountable because, oh my God, I'm going to get punished, or I'm going to get, feet to the fire or something. And I think the difference is that there's a way to hold people accountable in a caring and compassionate way, and there's also a way to deliver it in a punishment way. And so as you talk about the friends that you surround yourself with, how are they holding you accountable? And likewise, how are you holding them accountable?
Well, I first want to say I've learned so much from you about accountability in terms of you giving me space to give you feedback. Like, the way that you take feedback is an incredible example, in my opinion. I haven't been as good at taking feedback at times in the past, and I've really learned from you, because when I've been able to tell you about my perspective on things, or how I might have interpreted something, and then you go, okay, let me think about that, and you, it's not a knee-jerk reaction. And I know for me, that's something I'm still working on cultivating, because it is hard sometimes when people say something that maybe hits a trigger, or we all have our little minefields around ourselves, and it, maybe it brings up an insecurity or something like that. So it is really
well, and you oftentimes get that from people is, hey, don't take this personally, but, and whenever somebody says don't take this personally, I automatically know, okay, this is gonna hurt. This is gonna be personal because but there's a difference between a personal observation or a personal piece of feedback and a personal attack, and how you deliver that. And so as we talk about holding you accountable, or holds me accountable and I'm able to hold them accountable, the question is, and I thank you, by the way, that was very sweet what you said, and I do think that's a good point, are the people in your circle, do they create space for you to hold them accountable? How do they receive that feedback? How are they responding to that feedback? If you're told on a particular day, depending on your mood, and look, we all know the text example. Texting, you're always subject to the emotion of the person receiving the text. And if they're having a bad day, you can write something like, "Hey," and they're, "Why are you swearing at me? Why are you yelling at me?" I mean, it can be. I think a lot of people have had that experience. So when we talk about accountability in general, because everybody is going to have those moments, those lapses. Are the people in your garden, are they receptive to the feedback? Are they willing to listen? Even if they respond negatively at the outset, are they still working on those things? Are they still receptive to the feedback? Do they create the phrase here is psychological safety? Do they create that safe environment for you to be able to tell them, look, I want to give you some feedback and I want to hold you accountable for this? In the example that we used, Jami said, you were supposed to be here a certain time. But it wasn't just that she was admonishing me for not being there a certain time. What she did on top of that really benefited me is she told me how that made her feel.
Right. And I had some past experiences that it brings up for me. When I was growing up, my mom was late a lot. So it was one of those things where people were mad at us even before we would be late, just because there was an expectation that we were going to be late. So whether it was family members or friends or being picked up from school or parties or whatever. So for me, that's a real trigger. So being able to share that with you, and then you being really receptive to that and understanding where I'm coming from on that really made a huge difference for me. And the other thing that I've learned from you is that question, tell me more. So if I am getting feedback and I'm having a hard time maybe resonating with it or understanding where the person's coming from, getting a better sense of, we all process things differently. Right. And so something I did might have bothered you or a friend or something like that. And I need to understand it a little bit more so that I don't continue to step in that doo-doo and make that person feel bad, because I care about them. Right. And so I think at the end of the day, that's really what this is all about, is I care about you enough to be willing to hear, what you're saying and figure out how I can apply that. And for me, I am one of those people that sometimes it takes me a little bit to process, and that's okay too. If I get some feedback that maybe, stings a little bit or is a little bit hard for me to process, it's okay. In my opinion, to say, hey, I hear you. I'm going to need a minute to process this, and then we'll circle back and talk about it. And usually for me, once I take a step back and I think about it and process it and get out of my own way and move the ego aside, then I can figure out okay, here's where maybe I wasn't my best.
And you'll always hear, we'll talk about this a lot, or you'll hear this phrase, this is a story I'm telling myself. And it's interesting that the story that you're telling yourself when I approach you with feedback, if I get a negative response and in response to that feedback, the story I could be telling myself is, oh my God, they hate me, or oh my God, I'm never going to talk to this person again, or I'm never going to share this feedback with them again. And in reality, what you may be receiving is maybe that person had a bad day. Maybe my friend who I gave this feedback to and did not receive it well because they're just not in the right frame of mind to receive it. So I need to give them an allowance, some space to process that. But how I always go about it with you, and because you're the person I care about most, is I kind of weigh okay, do I care about Jami more than I do the risk of her responding negatively if I give this feedback? And I will tell you, in that balance, it always goes to the side of I care about you more than I do the risk that I may entertain if I deliver it or if it's received in a bad way. Because, and I think my experience, and I want you to give yours too, is that whenever we've had those conflicts, we have gotten closer together as a result of that.
We always grow from it. Every single time.
Yeah.
And that goes for the two of us. Feedback I've gotten even from my kids before. So, my son's really good at delivering feedback for me, and because I care so much, sometimes I've gotten triggered in the past with it. So, it takes me a little bit of time to sometimes process it and come back. And I think he knows that I really care so much that that's sometimes why I might get a little emotional. And then when I come back and I work on those things in myself, like we grow, like every relationship in my life grows when I'm able to sometimes walk through the fire and get the feedback and hear things I don't want to hear. None of us is perfect, and no relationship's perfect. I think it's what we're talking about here in this specific aspect is that willingness to continue to walk through the fires with this person, to learn, to grow, to care about their perspectives and their feelings on things. And I think if you have those people in your life, then, other things will develop.
Right. And it's so funny when you say that, because I do think about our kids a lot with this. And when it's hard to deliver feedback and hold somebody accountable when they are well-intentioned. If you are well, in both in receiving it and in giving it, if you know somebody's coming from a good place in their actions or their behaviors or their words, but they deliver it, it just doesn't hit well, and you hold them accountable for it. That's hard. That's hard because you're telling somebody that, hey, despite your intentions on this day at this time, this just was not your best look. But don't you want somebody to care enough about you to tell you when that happens?
Absolutely. And that's so funny. I was thinking about this earlier when we were on a group chat with our internal staff, and we have cultivated, and I'm really proud of this, just a safe space where people do express if they disagree.
Yep.
And it's really cool. Like we had kind of a conversation that was going back and forth where we were critiquing something, and just the openness and willingness for people to be able to speak their mind and not agree. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, majority rules, we're going that direction. If it's so freeing, it's so liberating. It feels so amazing to be able to know that you can express yourself. So it's something that takes work.
It does.
It really does. It's not always easy. So
hence cultivating the garden.
That's right.
And it does. It needs tending to. And one of the phrases that we like to use, and I use this a lot in my leadership days, is, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective?
I love that.
And so as you're examining holding somebody accountable, what's my purpose in this? Do I just want to assert my dominance and that, hey, I'm right, damn it, I told you it was this way, and
I do like to be right.
You do. Well, who doesn't though, Jami? Right? Who doesn't want to be right?
No, totally.
It's
an internal joke that what do you say? That I'd rather hear I'm right, you're right than.
In order of priority, the things that I can tell you that make you most happy are: you're right, I was wrong, and I love you. And I think
there we go.
Those three,
yes,
in that order. and so when you're talking about this, I do think it's important to check yourself. So as we talk about being a good friend and having good friends, when you're giving feedback, I think you need to have friends that you can give feedback to and hold them accountable. And as you're delivering that, ask yourself this question: what is my purpose in delivering that feedback? Do I want to simply be right and just say, man, you were wrong? And look, there may be circumstances where that's fun or that's good or that's the appropriate thing to do. But by and large, when you're telling somebody about something that they're doing or saying or acting a certain way, you've got to deliver that with the intention of being effective, not just to give the feedback to be right.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I'd like to introduce our next point because I like to talk about you when it comes to this aspect is, are they kind and considerate? And to me, this was really important, when I was dating and assessing, who I wanted my life partner to be. And, Greg jokes around that I put him through lots of trials and tribulations. That's
no joke.
But really one of the big things I was just paying attention to is how you treat people. perfect strangers, and we get on a plane and you offer to help somebody with their bag, or, we're going across the street and, you'll help somebody who's struggling a little bit. The way that you treat people, whether it's an Uber driver or the person who's serving a meal at a restaurant, or, whatever the situation is, like how does this person treat other people? Are they kind? Are they considerate? And again, look, nobody's perfect and we all have a bad day here or there, but it's really like the big picture of, how do you care for others in your life?
Right.
And, one of the things you and I like to say a lot, or, you say, I like to say a lot, is how you do anything is how you do everything.
Right.
And, so the way you're showing up in those moments, those moments when nobody's watching, how are you showing up? So to me, I want to surround myself with people that really are caring for others around them, and that are not because they want credit or because they want accolades. They're showing up because that's who they are. That's part of their purpose.
Well, and I'll give the credit to that. Whatever kindness I possess in my spirit, I'll give that credit to my mom and dad, because they're the ones who really demonstrated that and lived that lifestyle in such a very evident way. My dad, I call him the Zen master. His name was Guido, and yes, that's true. His name was Guido, so that's not a fabrication. That was his name, and I call him the Zen master because he was the kindest human being I've ever seen on the planet, and really the person that I grew up with, my hero, and I've wanted to model my life after him. As we talk about being kind and considerate, I think about one of our guilty pleasures, which is watching The Bachelor and Bachelorette.
Why are you telling on us?
Because I hated that I watched this show.
Just don't tell people we watch Bachelor in Paradise, please.
Like, come on, this ain't John Wick. This ain't Gladiator. This is a dating show. And yes, I will admit it that I do like watching it. And I originally started liking watching it because I like being with Jami, and I said, okay, Jami likes to watch the show, so that's what I need to do to be with Jami, which was an acceptable trade-off. But as we watch that show, it's amazing how there are life lessons and all of these things if you're observant enough to pay attention. And one of the things that we see in season after season is that the people who get along with other people in the singles shack, I guess we'll call that the singles shack. the singles quarters,
in
the mansion. The people that get along with each other are usually the people that are more successful versus the people that stir the SHIT. They are tending to alienate others around them. And I do think that's a characteristic you see in future episodes. The Bachelor or Bachelorette becomes very sensitive and sensitized to that fact of how do you treat other people. And I do think as you're looking for people you surround yourself with, one, assess your own behavior, but two, look for the people that are kind and considerate to those around them. Because if they're not, that affects you. That affects you emotionally. That affects you potentially physically if this person is always getting around and starting fights and stuff. And we're watching that show right now where the guy picks a fight with like everybody. We'll talk about Netflix shows later on, but he picks a fight with everybody. So he is definitely not what I would call kind and considerate in that respect. So if that's something that's important to you, I do think you need to be very intentional about surrounding yourself with that.
Yeah, I mean, we all have positive and negative qualities. We all do, and sometimes a real positive, negative quality when used in the wrong way could a positive quality become negative, and vice versa. So to me, when we talk about cultivating this garden and all of these things we're talking about, and specifically, kindness and consideration. I want people who are going to bring out the best in me.
Right.
I want to be around people that are going to bring out those qualities, which is why I married you. So, I feel like, that was the thing that made me fall in love with you, is that you brought out the qualities that I cherish the most in others. Therefore, I want to foster the most in myself. And, we were talking earlier about, females, we gossip, it's kind of, and men too.
We do.
I'm just saying, and it's not something that I want to foster more of. So, it's something that, we've been holding each other accountable about internally, within our company and within our friend group and things like that. And, is just really, helping each other to stay on the straight and narrow, bringing out those qualities of positivity when it comes to talking about other people, and being kind and
Right.
being considerate and, being understanding. And so, I think, seeing those qualities that you love and want to have more of in yourself helps you also when you're choosing this garden. And that's where the kind and considerate really came out, and like I said, watching you and the way that you handled yourself just really inspired me and, made me want to be better. I can tend to be a little bit more of an introvert and not reach out when I see somebody in need or whatever, whereas you will go like right over and just immediately without even a second thought. So I love that about you. So, by bringing someone in my life that is more comfortable in an area that I would like to be more comfortable in, it helps me, work on that aspect of myself. So I think that is something that can help us all grow, is find those people that have those qualities that you admire.
Kindness in this world is an underappreciated and certainly something that's a lot more rare than it used to be. So that probably leads us into our next characteristic, which is a core value for both of us, which is honor. And find people who are honorable. And listen, honorable or honor is a characteristic that transcends a few of these. So there is honor in kindness. There is honor in being dependable. There is honor in being honest. There is honor in doing the right thing when nobody is looking, otherwise known as integrity. And so honor just is one of those things where, for me, I want people that I can trust and around me and trust to be dependable. And that's why I say it kind of transcends a lot of these things. But we called it out specifically, one, because it's a core value for both Jami and I. That and family are our two biggest core values. But it also goes to something that where there are gaps in dependability or gaps in honesty or gaps in integrity, honor kind of fills that gap for me.
Yeah. And when we were doing our core value exercise, which we'll definitely talk about in another episode, because I think it's really important, loyalty was mine.
Right.
So authenticity and loyalty, in authenticity being not just honesty where I'm saying the truth, being authentically myself,
Right.
being honest in my actions and all those things. And then loyalty for me is so huge. And as you and I talked about it, those things are encompassed in honor along with other things as well. So to me, when I'm looking at who I want to surround myself with, I want those people that I feel like are loyal and that I'm loyal to too.
Right.
That carry those qualities of wanting to be authentic and wanting to be honest and really embrace.
They want to do the right thing.
Right.
They want to do the right thing. They want to do the right thing by you. They want to do the right thing by others. They just are people who are focused on being on the right side of things and being a sense of positiveness or positivity. I don't know that being optimistic is required, but I do think there's a difference between being optimistic and being positive. Being positive, and I had a Army buddy of mine tell me this the other day, and it was maybe one of the greatest compliments I've ever received, is he said, Greg, you are always so positive. No matter what I come at you with, you always have a positive outlook on it, and you find some way to find that gold or that gem within that. And I mean, yeah, maybe I think I could be equally criticized for that by always looking at the positive thing, which is fine, and I'll accept that. But I do think that the finding something to grow upon and enjoying the struggle of things, which we'll talk about that a little bit in another episode. But I do think that's part of what I feel is honorable for me, and me being authentic is that I want to find something, a lesson. I want to find something that will help me grow, no matter what the challenge, no matter whether it's a great thing or something that wasn't so great. So,
yeah, we get to choose.
Yeah, we do.
How we view the world. We get to choose how we approach things. And I mean, we're always going to have challenges and difficulties, whether they're with people or situations. And it's one of the things I have loved so much is that when I get into those ruts, I know that I can come to you and you can help me see an opportunity in it. And it might be that, there's some course correcting that needs to be done, or there might be a difference in approach or even how I'm viewing a certain situation. But because I have those people in my life, like you and a lot, I have some really special, amazing people that I know I can come to, and they're going to help me look at how I'm approaching certain things or how I'm thinking about it, so I can potentially reframe it. And, there's going to be situations that are going to be painful and hard and difficult. That is part of life. And it's just really interesting to see the difference in resilience in different people.
It is.
So, the more if that's not a strength for you, find someone that is a strength for, and then work on making it a strength, So I think that's an opportunity and something exciting to me.
And then that kind of, I think, builds us into our last point here, which is, are you surrounding yourself, are you cultivating your friendship garden with people who you actually enjoy spending time with? And I think of this as the energy vampires. There are people that you may have in your life that just suck you dry. They just, and listen, they may need you. And there's a difference between being an energy vampire on a day or a few days a week or a few days a month versus being an energy vampire the entirety of your life. And when you have those people, there is an aspect and there's a part of it that for me, I will take it to a point because I want to help. I want to get this person to a better outlook. I care about that person. But there is also a point where, man, I can't take it anymore. But what I will tell you is that energy vampire thing and enjoy your time to be around. Let's go back to the first thing that we talked about, which is interested in you. What I've always found is that there's a correlation between interested in you and enjoying being around. Is that if I don't enjoy being around you because you're an energy vampire, are you really interested in me? Because what I found is that those two are very related. Very related.
That is so true. It's interesting when you have that person who, usually these people that you would describe as energy vampires are those people that get stuck on something. Maybe it's an issue in their relationship, or they're frustrated about work, or there's something, but there's always something. Right. And whatever that is always dominating the conversation, and it's just the broken record. And like you said, I mean, everybody goes through tough times, and you need to have those people that are willing to listen and be there to support you. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the person who that's all they do 24/7. And there's not a lot of reciprocation coming. Like, how are you doing? I know it's funny because when my dad calls me, he's always just so interested in how I'm doing, and and I'll find myself updating him and everything, and then he doesn't want to talk about it. So I want to know how you're doing. Tell me, I want to know how you're feeling, like what's going on in your life and things like that. And so I think it's having those people that are interested, and that it's the two-way street.
Yeah. And I will confess that one of the things that I really struggle with is talking about myself. And Jami knows this about me. I don't really like to get into the details or whatever I'm going through. And a part of it is because I don't want to come across as an energy vampire. Part of it is I don't want people to think that I'm negative or something. But honestly, that's a story I was telling myself that's false. And my loving wife pointed out to me that, look, and she just asked me a simple question. She said, do you enjoy it when you are able to help somebody and listen to them and maybe help them see a different perspective? And I said, of course. And she said, well, why would you deny that from the people that you care about? And I mean, I tell you, I had a hard time arguing with that logic. And so when we talk about being right or being effective, well, she was effective, and that because I carry that with me to this day. And I think about that as somebody asks me, hey, how are things going with you? And the normal Greg response would be, I'm doing good, or I'm doing great, or something, just to get to the next topic. And then I realized that if something was going on in my life that hey, this is really hard on me right now, I missed an opportunity to really connect with that person, to be vulnerable with them and allow them to be there for me.
Right. So it's a give and take. And at the end of the day, that is so true. It is definitely a two-way street. And there were situations that in what you're describing where if something was bothering you and you were keeping it inside, I could still perceive, and the other people that care about you could still perceive there was something going on wrong. So what ends up happening when you don't express it is that then I start to internalize it. Oh, maybe he's upset with me. Maybe I said something and I didn't realize, or so I think there's that balance between, we don't always have to be all sunshine and rainbows. And at the same time, it's kind of comes back to being authentic, sharing, hey, I'm really having a tough day. Yeah. I twisted my ankle earlier and it's just really bugging me and it's in the back of my head constantly because it's just aching. So just letting you know if you notice, it's again, that's just being authentic and that communication. So that's very different than what we're talking about when we talk about an energy vampire that just keeps kind of just going on and on and on about me. It's all about me all the time.
And there is that aspect of, hey, if somebody calls me and they've had a death in the family, or like perhaps, I'll give you this scenario. I've had the hardest day of my life. Something happened in business or whatever. I failed something, which is general occurrence. So something happened. Okay, something happened that was a bad day, and I call up and somebody calls me up and they say, I ask him how they're going, how it's going. Oh, my aunt just passed away, or my pet just passed away. Man, it's hard in that moment to be vulnerable and express what's going on with you, because, and I'm just going to speak for myself. The story I tell myself is, well, I can't tell you what's going on with me because I don't want to marginalize or undermine what you're going through at that time. What I have found in experience is that oftentimes that's the most important thing they can hear. And you've got to gauge that out in terms of, your conduct with somebody, but oftentimes it can be the one thing that really helps that person, because it can take them out of their funk and out of what they're focusing on and allows them to look externally a little bit, not to avoid their grief or not to avoid that, but simply to just come back and recognize that there's a bigger world out there. So just something to consider.
And at the end of the day, I think one of the things that's at the root of everything we're talking about is truly intention and where you're coming from and where your heart is. And then, working on having actions reflect that, and, working on caring more, understanding other people's perspectives a little bit more, and being compassionate. And, I think that's at the root of everything that we've talked about today.
It is. And I would maybe summarize all these points, and we'll go through them just real briefly, but our son actually hit on this theme, which is talking about role models. And are you surrounding yourself with people who make you want to be better? Are you surrounding yourself with people in your garden? Are you cultivating a garden of people who are role models to you, who make you want to be better? And hopefully you're doing the same thing for them as well. You are a role model to them as much as they are a role model to you. And I do think that whole concept of role modeling is so important, is because it's the, do as I say, not as I do. Are you leading by example? Are you setting the example both for the people around you in your friend garden, or are they also doing the same thing for you? So as we go down these points, they're interested in you, in your friendship garden. The person is interested in you. They're dependable. They are holding you accountable with kindness and compassion. They are kind and considerate. They are honorable, and you enjoy being around them. I think those are some good points to just think about as you assess those around you. And maybe another episode we can talk about, okay, well, what do you do maybe we can just talk about it now. When your friendship garden has a weed in it, what do you do? You pull the weed. And it's just a question of, it doesn't need to be harsh. It doesn't need to be, dramatic. It just needs to be, look, I'm just going to spend less time with the weed that I've now pulled out of my garden, and I'm going to spend more time on the flowers that are blooming and on the other things that I want to grow, because that's how I want to cultivate my friendship garden.
Right. And I would always start first with that conversation and holding them accountable, letting them know what you need so that they have an opportunity to potentially make some shifts. And sometimes that doesn't really change things. And at that point, creating some space and whatever that looks like for you. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to cut somebody completely out of your life, but maybe you spend a little bit less time with them, and maybe it does mean you need to cut them completely out. Just kind of, I think it depends on, how difficult it is to still be in that relationship and what it means to you. And, that's going to be individual in each situation. So
that is us for today. And as always, be good to yourself, be good to those around you, and be safe.
Thank you for tuning in to FitBody Lifestyle. We hope today's episode has left you feeling motivated and equipped to tackle your fitness goals, business challenges, and the daily dance of life. Remember to value progress over perfection. Life's tough enough alone. Find the chosen family around you to help you along the way.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FitBody Fusion.